Hey, sorry, I wasn't on here for
Hello.
too long. Oh, what's up?
Hello.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, yeah. I joined like not too long ago, but I think you guys were talking about I guess free market healthcare. Are you guys like for or against it? Because I'm confused.
Well, I'm in favor of a healthcare system that means nobody has to worry about getting sick without going bankrupt. I don't care if
Yeah,
it's free market or
exactly.
something out, as long as when you go to the hospital, you don't need to worry about going bankrupt, as 66% of the bankruptcies in this country are cited for.
Yeah,
Well,
when you just say free market, that opens the door for a lot of unnecessary medical debt.
wait, that's just like pretty contradictory to what he just said. Because like first he said he doesn't care if it's free market. He just doesn't want like certain like outcomes. But like in order to prevent those outcomes,
It's
you're gonna have
not
like
contradictory for us to have
wait,
different
just let me
opinions
finish.
from each other.
What? No, I'm just like I'm saying like what he's saying. I'm addressing like what he's saying right now. So you said like you're okay with the free market, but, like in the same like sentence you're saying that you don't want like a certain outcome to happen, and like in order to prevent that outcome sufficiently, you're gonna have to like set some sort of restriction. And I think like the definition of free is gonna be without restriction.
I'm telling you right now, I'm not okay with the system that's in place, and if it's going to stay in place as the way it is, there need to be some heavy caveats to it.
Okay,
Such
so
as the cap on insulin, so we don't have people rationing their insulin and dying of preventable causes.
okay, wait. So like
Absolutely.
if you've established that you don't agree with like his exact point, then like every time I ask him a question, then I get like a completely different like point being brought up. It's gonna be a little confusing. So
It's almost like we're two different people.
yeah, it
It's
is.
almost as if we don't share a brain, and what I said was extremely relevant to the conversation.
Wait,
Hmm.
if it's contradictory towards like his points, then like I would prefer if like I
How
stick
is
with
it
like mine.
contradictory?
I
He
said
said he doesn't want people to not be able to afford healthcare. I mentioned people unable to afford insulin were rationing their insulin and therefore dying. How is that contradictory?
wait, I'm just gonna finish the sentence. Okay, so yeah, if you say that like you do have a different opinion, which I guess are you saying that you do have a different opinion than him, or is it the exact same?
We both come from the same place. It just sounds like we have different methods for going there. I don't know enough about healthcare to say free market needs to go. I think Robo can talk to this a little bit better, though.
Okay,
I
so
can abstain if you want.
I was interested in your position too, but like I guess I can focus on Robo if it's like more conducive towards the conversation.
Either way, it's
Yeah, Robo. Do you like restrictions in like the market?
So you're gonna have to be more specific.
Which word did you need clarification on? Was it restrictions or market?
Well, it's the whole phrase saying restrictions in the market. Because if I say sometimes and you say, oh, though, so then every situation should be, well, then no, that's not what I said. So I need you to clarify what restrictions you're talking about. Restrictions on what, to what extent, for whom?
That seems contingent on like interpretation, but like when I'm asking a
Well, no,
question,
because like
wait,
restrictions in
you
the
cut me off.
market,
Wait, you
do
cut
I
me off.
think
No, it's
people should
fine.
be
I
able
let
to
Jim cut
employ
off.
3 year
Robo.
olds?
Robo,
No,
okay.
therefore it's a restriction in
Robo,
the
real
market.
quick. Robo, let the guy finish his sentences.
Sorry,
It's
I've
okay. It's
talked to him
okay.
before and it's always been interesting.
It's okay. Just like we don't need to derail this conversation by cutting each other off.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess the question is like it's just a general question. Like, do you prefer restrictions in the market? Essentially, what that question means is like restrictions is going to be the negation of freedom. I guess like by definition, which I'm using by Oxford. So essentially, what I'm advocating for is like a free market. I guess my question for you is like, do you support the free market just in general production and like the means of production?
I do not support a market without any restrictions.
You do not. I don't know. It's hard to interpret that. You don't support a market without any restrictions. Okay, so if there is a market without any restrictions, then you're not going to support it. Can I ask, like, what kind of market are you going to support? I guess as opposed to like a free market, like what kind of
One
restrictions
with
can I like expect?
reasonable restrictions. So, like I mentioned earlier, I don't think a company should be able to employ 3 year olds. Is technically a restriction on the market because it limits the pool from which they can draw their employment. I think that is a reasonable restriction on the market. I don't think that people should go into debt for the rest of their lives over medical care, especially for diseases that are hereditary or that they have no control over.
Yeah, I guess there's some sort of like, I guess I need to be clear on like what I mean by market because like I just take a market to be some sort of like ethical bartering. It's inherently due to contracts and like the ability to consent. If individuals such as 3 year olds like don't have the faculties, the rational faculties to be able to consent, then I don't think it would like logically follow that they can even they can even like participate in the market. So that's not what I'm referring to. Like when I say like
Um,
the bringing the production, like the privatizing of the
so I'm
production.
gonna have to disagree that wage laborers at all are able to consent to being exploited for their labor.
Wait, what does exploitation mean?
So in this case, the value added by, wage laborers is significantly more than what they are paid. They are often in unfair and poor working conditions, often not enough to support themselves, while those higher up in the company are able to give themselves raises rather than cuts. Um, so I think the exploitation of wage laborers means that there's inherently a lack of consent in a so-called completely free market.
It sounds like you're presupposing some sort of mind independent standard of value, but that's not a position I hold or agree to.
So you don't think that if someone adds a certain amount of value to a product through their labor, that they should be paid fairly according to the value they add?
No, because like what I said was like I don't presuppose like some sort of mind independent standard of value. So I think the value is contingent on like a certain properties such as like what the contract entails.
Yeah, except it's not what the contract entails because again, those contracts are frequently made to exploit. I'll give you an example. So at my job, I teach swim lessons. Each student in my class, there are 4 students per class, pay $30 per lesson, and each lesson is a half hour. So say I have 2 full classes in 1 hour. That's $240 of profit for the company that I work for. However, I'm only paid 15 and some an hour. So $240 profit is made while I'm only earning 15. That's less than 10% of the profit made by my labor.
Wait, do you think that the provision would be available without like the company? Like, do you think like your contributions like make up for 100% of the income? Is that what you think?
Not 100%, but more than 10%. If I were
Real
not there
quick,
to conduct the class, they would not pay the money for the lesson.
real quick, I'm gonna jump in and say that I'm gonna put a 5-minute warning on this because I have less than 10% battery left.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah. Usually when I get into these conversations, they take much more than 5 minutes. Um, I guess
Yeah,
I can
well,
give
it's
like honestly, I could give like a closing statement like the size of 5 minutes to be honest. But yeah, I guess my position is like I don't believe in like this mind independent standard of value. I don't really think you can like accurately gauge like exactly okay how much percent did I I guess contribute towards this transaction? How much do I deserve? Um, and it seems like even if we could find this, and you were able to like justify the fact that like you were actually indeed paid less than like what the contract would entail. I'm not sure why like you would consensually work for this. I guess work for this constitution anyway. It
Because I have
seems
rent
odd.
to pay, Lucario. Again, wage laborers are often exploited because of desperation, from not being able to support themselves, because of their basic needs not being able to be covered.
Wait, we got into the definition. I asked you for like the definition of exploitation, but it seems like when I asked like for an example, like you keep using the word exploitation, but that's pretty vague. I know a lot of definitions, but I don't have any like moral implications based on the most of them.
Okay, we can say exploit is to take unfair advantage of.
Yeah, what does unfair mean?
Unequitable?
Equitable? What does that mean?
Are we having a second grade vocab
Yeah,
lesson?
you're just using synonyms. Do you think that's conducive?
I think people know what that means, and I shouldn't have to talk to you on the level of a 7-year-old.
Yeah, wait, so every time you use like words like unfair, like that presupposes some sort of like rule structure. Because I guess my definition of unfair, if you want, is going to be some sort of like action that goes against like a set of rules. Like if there's a rule that you can't be like 6'2" and play basketball with like short people, but you go in there anyway, knowing that you are 6'2". I think that's unfair. There has to be like rules that go against this, but I don't really think that's the case with like the market and like I guess people's contracts and moral entitlements. I don't think that's the case. I don't see like a standard of rules other than just like sanctioning your freedom of action. So when you use terms
Yeah,
like
so
unfair, it
again,
seems like wait when you use like synonyms like just repetitively, it seems like you almost beg the question like what do you mean by exploitation, and it leaves me like
I've
very
tried to
confused.
give you as simple of a definition as I can. If you don't understand what the word unfair or not equitable or exploitative means, that's not the topic of conversation. My topic of conversation is not having to define words for you.
Wait, the topic
Like you're
of
trying to get off on this
conversation.
tangent. It has
Um,
nothing to do with what we're talking about. So what I was saying is, obviously, people who bring more value to a certain product. We'll give another example. I did $3,000 in sales in 1 week, and in that week I made less than $400. So I did over 3,000 in sales. So we're specifically talking about sales, leads that I sought out.
Yeah, so
So
all right.
again, I'm making roughly 10% of the value that I added to the company. Does that seem fair at all?
Yeah, so I guess just to be clear, the topic of conversation seems to be Trump's gonna lose again, LOL. Like, I think we went on this conversation like fully knowing that there isn't like a set standard of conversation. So like even when you use
Okay, well
terms
now
like
I'm
sorry,
gonna step in and say that was the prompt, but that was the conversation that you wanted to have when you jumped in. You
Yeah.
specifically were talking about the free market in terms of healthcare. So this is where the conversation is led.
wait, yeah, if I
If
could
you're
just
not a
finish.
fan of that, that's
Sorry.
fair, but don't pretend like this is
Yeah,
not
you
what
came
you
in
were
wanting to
Wait,
discuss that
he said like cut.
topic.
Wait, he said he was gonna cut in, and then you cut in on his cut in.
I well, I mean, I don't care. I mean, she was adding to my point.
Okay, yeah. So I'm just gonna like finish what I'm saying, if that's okay. Thank you. Yeah, it seems the topic of conversation. Like I brought the topic of conversation as far as like the free market, and when our argument presupposes some sort of like mind independent exploitative nature, I have no idea what that means. I think like you're begging the question when you use like circular reasoning, especially if like the definitions of terms that you use like just end up going into like this vicious sort of like I guess synonyms. So it's not really conducive towards the conversation. I negate like the idea that there is like a mind independent standard of unfairness. When you use terms like that, I think it presupposes like that there isn't just it isn't just like contingent on the contract, and that's the argument. That's the core of my argument. Contract
Okay,
requires
Okay.
here,
Well,
consumption.
okay.
I
So
can
we're
help you. Money given to person, too little money, not big money. Do
Too
much
little?
work,
Oh, too little
get
money.
little
What does that?
money.
Wait, what does that
Does
mean?
that
okay.
does
What
that
standard
help?
are you using for too little? Go ahead.
Okay. This
You're
This should
conversation
be
fucking
isn't.
easy for you.
ridiculous.
Guys,
This should be
okay, stop.
honestly easy for you.
Stop.
He's gonna
This
make 10
conversation.
videos
Stop.
about me
Stop.
after this.
This
That's how it always
conversation,
fucking goes.
guys, this conversation isn't really going anywhere, and we've hit the 5-minute mark. I do need to get my phone charged, so I'm gonna end the live soon. I'll give you both like a brief 1 minute to wrap up, and then we do need to end this. Does anyone want to go first? All
Wait,
right, fair enough.
I guess I can go first. I guess my closing statement is like I don't really agree with like anything that violates the non-aggression principle. I think when we say that transactions of labor are going to be exploitative because like it goes against some sort of standard, I have no idea what that standard is, independent of like just contingent values. And I think I look at the actions, right? And so when two people engage in an action that is consensual, we understand that man can only ever act in accordance with his desire. So if it is the case that man acts in a consensual contract, then he desires it. I don't think we can justify punishment on like a mutually beneficial transaction. That concept makes no sense to me.
Robo?
If that were the truth, everybody would have their dream job. People take jobs because we are in a society in which we have to provide for our own basic needs rather than them being provided for us. And as far as, saying people only like will take fair contracts, we know that's not true. We know the more difficult jobs, the jobs that involve actual hard labor are much more low paying than jobs like, CEO of a company. Do you really think that a CEO works harder than, say, an average construction worker? Like, lower paying jobs tend to be more difficult, more physically taxing, possibly more mentally taxing. So when I say inequitable, that's what I mean. More effort, more labor is not rewarded with the same amount of pay.
All right. So that's about all the time we have. Obviously, I wish we could flesh this out a little bit more, but I do have a limited amount of battery time. So, thank you both for coming on. Appreciate it. Special shout out to Aiden and to Gavin. I hope both of you, not both of you, I hope everyone in this live followed them because if you're not, you're missing out. But, yeah, that's my time.